The date is June 6, 1944. The air is thick with salt and the metallic taste of impending war. History is holding its breath, waiting for the greatest amphibious invasion ever attempted to crash against Fortress Europe. Every element of this day is known, studied, and recorded. But what if a variable appeared that no general could plan for? What if the most advanced stealth bomber ever built, a black wing forged in a distant future, sliced through the war-torn skies? This is not the history you were taught. This is what happens when a ghost from tomorrow rewrites our past. The date is June 5th, 1944. Deep inside a concrete observation bunker, the air hangs heavy with the smell of damp earth and cold steel. A lone German soldier, his breath fogging in the chill, peers through a narrow viewing slit at the churning gray waters of the English Channel. He is a single gear in a vast, brutal machine of war, the Atlantic Wall. To him, it is more than just a line of defense. It is an unbreakable fortress, a testament to German engineering and will, designed to shatter any army that dares to approach its shores. The air is thick with a tension you can almost taste, a cold static that crackles along the coast. Every whisper on the radio, every nervous glance exchanged between the men in the bunker confirms the inevitable. The invasion is coming. But fear is held at bay by something stronger. A deep, unshakable faith in the wall itself. This fortress of steel and concrete, a masterpiece of German engineering, was designed for this exact moment. It was built to repel any force, to bleed any army dry upon the sand. He trusts the engineering. He trusts the guns. He was a man who understood the hard physics of war. He knew the sound of artillery fire, the distant drone of propeller engines, the predictable arc of a mortar shell. These were the established rules of his reality, a brutal but understandable equation of steel and explosives. But the coming dawn would not be governed by those rules. The threat wasn't on the horizon. It was far above it, operating on principles he couldn't even imagine. His confidence, built on concrete and firepower, was about to be shattered. The very reality of warfare was about to be rewritten. 50,000 feet above the tense European coast, an anomaly slices through the frozen darkness of the stratosphere. It moves with a purpose no V-2 rocket could match, and with a shape unknown to any Allied air command. There are no propellers, no roaring engines, just a silent, impossible presence. It is a perfect black flying wing, a smooth, menacing chevron cutting across the distant stars. This is the B-2 spirit, a specter, not of this war, but from a conflict 70 years in the future, an impossible ghost sent tumbling through time to haunt the skies of the past. This craft was more than just metal and wire. It was a technological ghost. From the primitive British chain home stations to the advanced German Freya and Wurzburg arrays, every radar system on the continent swept the skies in vain. The machine's skin, a composite material born from a future they couldn't even dream of, simply drank the radio waves, leaving nothing but silent, empty air behind. It was a perfect phantom moving through their world completely undetected. Its arrival wasn't just an act of war. It was a violation of reality itself, the intrusion of the impossible into history. But inside that silent ghost, the reality is far from perfect. Major Eva Rostova and Captain Ben Carter sit strapped into the most advanced machine ever created by man, surrounded by dark screens and dead instruments. They are the pilots of a technological god, but they are facing a catastrophic fundamental flaw. Their incredible war machine is an apex predator ripped from its natural ecosystem. Every system, every display, every weapon is designed to interface with a digital world. a world of satellites and global positioning that won't exist for another 50 years. They are flying the deadliest weapon in history, completely blind. The belly of this ghost holds the most advanced ordnance ever conceived. Each bomb is a marvel of precision, capable of being guided through a specific window of a specific building from miles above the Earth. But this surgical accuracy has a fatal dependency. It requires a constant stream of data from a network of satellites orbiting the planet. Satellites that, in 1944, are nothing more than science fiction. Without the global positioning system, their smart bombs are just bombs. Their greatest technological advantage, the very reason for their mission, has been rendered completely and utterly useless. The most sophisticated killing machine ever created was flying half-blind. Inside the cockpit, the soft glow of analog dials replaced the familiar comfort of a digital battle space. There was no glowing GPS grid, no satellite targeting overlay, just the oppressive darkness of a world that hadn't yet been mapped by ones and zeros. The two-person crew, trained for a computerized war, was forced to fall back on navigation methods as old as sailing itself. They navigated by the cold, distant light of the stars, cross-referencing their positions on flimsy paper maps, a stark, unbelievable contrast to the trillion-dollar weapon they commanded. Their orders were a paradox, whispered from a future they could never return to. They weren't here to win the war in a single night. One ghost ship couldn't stop an army. No, their mission was something far more surgical and infinitely more critical. They were tasked with unleashing precise, targeted chaos on the most heavily defended coastline in human history. Their job was to become scalpels in the dark, to find the concrete nerve centers and the biggest guns holding the Atlantic Wall together, and to systematically erase them from existence moments before the main invasion began. Far below, the dark surface of the English Channel begins to churn. It is the beginning of a steel tide, thousands of ships forming the largest invasion fleet ever assembled, a ghost-gray armada pushing relentlessly toward the French coast. But the first blow will not be fired from a warship's cannon. 9 miles above the fleet, the B-2 Spirit banks into its attack run. It is a silent predator against the stars, a phantom of pure black, aligning itself with the heavily armed shoreline, preparing to unleash a new kind of war from an impossible height. With a whisper of pressurized air, a sound utterly lost in the vast emptiness of the stratosphere, the B-2's weapon bay doors slide open. Far below, on the cold French soil, no one hears a thing. Rows of precision-guided munitions hang in the darkness, each one a technological miracle. But their digital brains are sleeping, their GPS eyes blind. The crew has done everything they can, cross-referencing paper maps with the faint lights of the coastline, running calculations that felt ancient. It all comes down to this single, unguided release. Can a weapon so advanced succeed when it's forced to fight without its digital eyes? Down below, inside the thick concrete walls of his bunker, the German soldier feels only the familiar chill of the night. His eyes scan the dark horizon, a routine he has performed 1,000 times. There is no telltale drone of approaching engines, no distant wail of an air raid siren to pierce the calm. His ears, trained for the sounds of war, detect only the wind whistling over the dunes and the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. It is a quiet, ordinary moment, a deep breath before the dawn. He is completely unaware that death is not approaching. It is already here. Suddenly, a deep tremor runs through the ground, vibrating up through the soles of the soldier's boots and into his bones. This wasn't the familiar, distant rumble of artillery he'd been trained to expect. It was something alien, a violent, unnatural shudder, as if the very bedrock of the continent was groaning in protest. There was no accompanying sound, no whistle of a falling shell, just a raw physical violation of the earth itself. For the German defenders along the Atlantic Wall, confused and terrified, The silent, impossible attack had finally begun. He presses his eye to the narrow concrete slit, his knuckles white against the cold wall. He's searching for the source of that unnatural tremor, expecting the distant muzzle flash of naval guns lighting up the horizon. Instead, for one terrifying heartbeat, there is only the familiar dark coastline. And then, it's gone. The entire world outside his bunker simply vanishes, replaced by a silent, blinding flash of white light. The air itself seems to crackle as his view is instantly choked with pulverized dust and shattered earth. The soldier blinked, his eyes stinging from the flash. Through the swirling dust and settling earth, he saw not a ruin, but an absence. The command post, a heavily reinforced concrete structure, the absolute nerve center for this entire section of the Atlantic Wall, had simply ceased to exist. It hadn't crumbled or exploded in the way he understood. There was no high-pitched whistle of a falling bomb, no scream of incoming artillery. One second, it was the heart of the defense, bristling with communication lines and officers. The next, it was a gaping wound in the earth, erased with instantaneous, impossible finality. The instantaneous annihilation continues. Less than a mile down the coast, a German 88mm artillery battery swivels toward the sea. Its crew is ready, its position perfect to turn the incoming landing craft into floating coffins. But their chance never comes. Another silent strike erases the position from existence. The gun, the crew, and the neatly stacked shells are simply vaporized, gone in the space of a heartbeat, leaving nothing but superheated sand where a fortress of steel once stood. The silent assault continued, moving with terrifying precision along the coastline. The Germans had built a web of interconnected strongpoints, bunkers linked by trenches, a concrete nervous system designed for coordinated fire. Now, that system was being systematically dismantled. One by one, key fortifications were simply erased from existence. A blast tore a massive crater where a machine gun nest had been seconds before. Another followed further down the line, collapsing a trench and severing the artery of communication to the next bunker. The wall wasn't just being broken, it was being unraveled, link, by a ghost in the sky. But the most terrifying part wasn't the explosions themselves. It was the impossible silence that preceded each one. In a world defined by the drone of engines and the whistle of falling bombs, this new destruction arrived without any warning at all. There was no sound, no shadow, just a sudden, violent erasure of reality. One moment, a concrete bunker stood defiant against the sea. The next, it was simply gone. It was warfare delivered from nowhere, an attack that felt less like a battle and more like the earth itself was inexplicably coming apart at the seams. Panic erupts like a contagion along the German lines. Surviving soldiers scramble for their field radios, their voices cracking with sheer terror as they send frantic, impossible reports up the chain of command. They don't report an enemy attack because there is no enemy to see. They scream that the earth itself is exploding beneath their feet. There are no engine sounds, no whistling bombs, just instantaneous annihilation from a clear night sky. This isn't warfare, it's a violation of physics, an impossible event that defies every known law of combat, turning their unbreakable wall into a tomb. High above the burning coastline, the job was done. With its devastating payload delivered, the massive black wing banked in a slow, silent arc. It made no sound, offered no trail, a specter turning against the stars. From 50,000 feet, the chaos it had unleashed was a distant, muted tapestry of fire and fear. The crew saw none of it. Their focus was on the journey home, a path through time itself. The B-2, a ghost of a future war, dissolved back into the high-altitude darkness from which it came, its impossible mission complete. For the German defenders left alive, the world no longer made sense. Their reality had been completely fractured. The Atlantic Wall, a fortress of concrete and steel they believed was unbreakable, had been breached. But it wasn't by shells or bombs they could understand. It was breached by an invisible, inexplicable force. A ghost that struck from the heavens without a sound and vanished without a trace. This wasn't warfare. It was something else entirely. The fear that took root in their hearts wasn't just the fear of dying. It was a cold, absolute, and paralyzing terror born from witnessing the impossible. The ghost bomber's impact was not theoretical. It was immediate and brutally decisive. Down on the coast, at the sector codenamed Omaha, a stretch of sand destined to become a killing field, a fatal gap had been torn open in the Atlantic Wall. Where heavily fortified gun emplacements and command bunkers were meant to rain hellfire upon the approaching fleet, there was now only a chain of smoldering, silent craters. The nerve centers were vaporized. The deadliest guns were gone. As the first light of dawn broke, the German defensive line wasn't just damaged, it was strategically decapitated moments before the invasion began. The Higgins boats churned through the surf, their steel ramps moments from dropping. In another timeline, they would have been met by a wall of interlocking machine gun fire and perfectly ranged artillery, a meat grinder of legendary lethality. But today, they face something else entirely. The resistance they meet is stunned, disorganized, and completely paralyzed by the silent devastation that just occurred. German soldiers scramble from their positions, not to repel an invasion, but to make sense of the craters that used to be their command posts. They are fighting an enemy they never saw, an attack they never heard. For thousands of young men packed into Higgins boats, a death sentence they never knew they had was quietly commuted. They were preparing to charge into a meat grinder, a wall of perfectly placed machine guns and artillery designed to make the sea run red. But as the ramps dropped, the hell they found was survivable. They would fight, bleed, and claw their way up that beach, winning the day through sheer grit. They would go on to live their lives, forever crediting their survival to luck or providence, never knowing their path was cleared by a silent ghost from a future they couldn't possibly imagine. The ghost plane left nothing behind but an impossible mystery, a legend that would be debated in hushed tones for decades. In the years that followed, soldiers from both sides would try to make sense of the silent devastation that saved one army and broke another. Was it a top-secret weapon, a phantom project that was never spoken of again? Or was it something else entirely, an act of God on the blood-soaked sand? They would never know the truth. The bomber's true role was not as a conqueror, but as a ghost that rewrote one violent moment in history. The B-2 bomber was a ghost, an invisible phantom that rewrote a single, pivotal moment of history from the stratosphere. It was one impossible weapon against an army. But what happens when the scale is smaller, the fight more intimate, and the enemy just as deadly? If you were captivated by this story of a machine out of time, then you have to see what happens next, when we trade the cold silence of high altitude for the mud and steel of the past. A modern Navy SEAL team trapped in feudal Japan with nothing but their training against the blades of 10,000 samurai.